This is TWiT.
Is it credible? We're talking about the Apple plans giant high-end iPhone and a lower-priced model. In fact, you're right. Ming Chi Kuo also said 3 phones this year. The largest iPhone ever, I think they said 6.5 inches, right?
The largest screen, I think, last I heard, it was still roughly the same size as a Plus iPhone, because that's, there are limits to the human hand, but it will be the largest screen ever fit.
So imagine an iPhone 8 with an edge-to-edge screen, and that's basically what you're talking about.
There have been a lot of complaints from users about how they love the iPhone 10, but the screen feels smaller to them than the iPhone 8 Plus, or the iPhone 7 Plus screen that came from. So I can certainly believe that.
It's funny because Lisa and I both, playing with our iPhone 10s, just the other day said, but I love the size of this screen. It's not as big as... But again, it might be hand feel as opposed to screen.
Well, it's also optical, because Apple made a deliberate choice not to use the split view controller. Like for the iPhone 7, going all the way back to iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, iPhone 6 was a standard iPhone, just a little bit bigger. iPhone 6 Plus got a split view controller, got more columns. They used more of the real estate. Then when they went to the iPhone 10, because it's a little bit, I mean, it's taller, but it's not as wide, and they felt it was a better experience to stick with that single view, that single column view. So it doesn't do as much, doesn't feel as much like a mini iPad. And I think what people want is to go back to that feeling like you have a tiny tablet in your hand.
Yeah, and of course it would cannibalize probably iPad sales, which have been coming back. But I would love a 6.5-inch iPhone. Bring it on.
I don't think Apple's precious about the iPad Mini. It was a product that that they had to be convinced to make to begin with. Yeah.
I think they really want to try to get some of those Galaxy Note sales back now that the Samsung has a model that doesn't ignite. I think that they realize that bites into that's biting into their purchases. That there is a niche for people who have need for a larger productivity-minded phone. I don't think they'll go so far as to make it work with Apple Pencil, although wouldn't that be interesting? But I think that's where they're going to go.
Yeah, that would. Well, it'd have to be a smaller pencil, right? A little stylus-y kind of. You don't
the golf pencil.
You're not going to carry this around with a phone. It's too big. It's not.
The Apple Pencil Sketch.
The Sketch. I like it. Yeah. I like it. Yeah. But that's one of 3. So there's this 6.5-inch largest iPhone ever. It actually would be bigger than a Galaxy Note even. Then an upgraded size, a handset the size of the current iPhone 10, and then a replacement for the SE, which is admittedly getting a little long in the tooth. A less expensive model with some of the flagship phone's key features. All 3 would have Face ID, for instance.
There is an SE replacement, which is not this phone. This phone is designed for people who want a less expensive. It's almost like the iPhone 5C strategy, but instead of going for pop art, they're keeping the same characteristics of an iPhone 10, but there's a limit to how much OLED that Apple can actually consume in any given cycle, and also to the price that you can charge for those sort of premium, because OLED is still a super expensive technology. So by making an iPhone 10 that has an LCD screen, for example, and doesn't have every one of the brand new bells and whistles, you'll reduce the price. I think one of the challenges they have now is the iPhone 6s, iPhone 7, iPhone 8 are all on the market. They all look identical, and there's very little differentiation for the iPhone 8. But if you get one of those into the new form factor, then you have a lower cost option, and I think that'll promote a lot more upgrades than it would if they just kept around the 8 for another year.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's also going to be keen to see. Remember that I was surprised last year to see exactly how big the iPhone line is right now. Yes. That they didn't really clear any of the wheat away from the field as they brought in these new models. So my guess has always been that they did the math and figured out that it was cheap enough to keep given component costs that they already have on hand, given stuff that they already have, it might be okay to simply keep the line as thick as possible, and then that will tell them what phone do they need to make that they're not making already as a new product, and or what do we not dare cancel. So I wonder if we're going to be back to a 3 or 4 iPhone lineup, because when you have the idea of having so many annual phones still on the price list, you've got to wonder why that's so and how long it's going to last.
Yeah, I think the SE, I mean, the people who buy the SE, some people just want an inexpensive iPhone, but some people still really want that very small one-handed iPhone. And the next generation of that sounds more like what an iPhone 6 or 7 or 8 size device, but with a full screen. So you sort of have, well, maybe an iPhone SE thing, but with a full size screen. So you get that 4.7-inch screen, but in that small form factor.